Okay, I'm just going to go through a couple of the steps for making your ramp after you've brought it in to Max from CAD. This is George's ramp. It's looking pretty good in plan. It's come in very nicely and it looks like it will cap perfectly well. I'm going to maximise the plan viewport by going down to the viewport toggle button. And then I'm going to select the line by clicking on it. And then underneath where it says, first of all I will go to the modify panel, which is the rainbow in the square. I'm going to select the editable spline. And I'm going to select vertices. What you'll see now is the grip edits all turning up. What I want to do, just to check that this line is going to extrude and Boolean well, as I'm going to go to the display and ask to show the vertex numbers. I'm ticking this box here. When I look at George's ramp and zoom in a bit, I can see that her vertex numbering is all fine. So she has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, logically all the way around her ramp. She has all the vertices which surround each landing, so she'll be able to lift each landing to the right level. I've checked all her numbers. There's no numbers on top of any numbers, so all of that looks fine. I can go back to the display, turn off vertex numbers by ticking there, and I can also turn off vertices altogether for the moment. When I'm in Max, when I select an object, it goes white. So we know it's selected because it's white. With this object that's come in from AutoCAD, it is actually drawn in white, which makes it quite confusing to be able to tell whether it's selected or not. So here I am, I'm selecting it, it's selected, I'm unselecting it, but it looks no different. So what I'm going to do is change the colour and the name of this object. I'm going to select it here. I'm going to go back up to my modify panel up here, and just underneath the modify panel I'm going to call this object my cut ramp. Just over here I'm going to change the colour of it to something logical. Now if I deselect this object out here, you'll see that it's gone mauve. It's not super easy to see, it's okay. So that object is now fine. What I want to do now is toggle down to my viewports. And I want to make the orthographic current so that I can look at my ramp. George has already moved each of her landings up to the right place. She did this by selecting the object, going to the vertices, and then you can click in here in the plan view if you want to, any view you like, whichever makes sense. Draw a window over these, and then right click on your move tool. Type in where you want them in the Z. Hopefully you've all been able to do that. So I'm just going to undo that. I'm just going to go back to the plain spline. So it's now, I know what this thing is called. It's called the cut ramp and it's purple. What I want to do is just test that it is going to extrude properly. And to do this, I'm going to go to my modifier panel. In here where it says modify list, click, type in EX, pop an extrude modifier over it. I'm going to make it about 2 meters high. So that's fine. As you can see in the orthographic view, which I'm just going to make bigger by going to the toggle viewport, this object now looks really good. It's all capped and it looks like it's extruded properly. What many of you will notice at this point is that your ramp does not meet your path particularly well. There's a couple of ways that we can fix that by going back to your vertices. So you need to select the object again. You can probably just bin that extrude, so that extrude is there, or you can just turn it off. Either way is fine. Go back into your editable spline, go back into the vertices, and you want to select these two vertices here, which are supposed to be meeting your path. Now this is a bit of hand or eyeballing that you need to do. So you probably just want to have some snaps on, but just be careful with what you're snapping to. So I'm about to turn my snaps on by clicking on them, and I'm going to right click and make sure it's got a vertice. Midpoint, that's fine, and end point, that's fine. Closing that. Now you'll see, just like we did in CAD, that there are some grip points. I'm going to move that grip point to a grip point that is on that path. Now when I scroll around, you can see that that has met that path a bit more effectively. I can turn those vertices off, and I can turn the extrude back on by going here. And the extrude will pop back up. Holding around. Okay, so that's done. Now what you want to do is copy this object, turning your snaps off again, I would say, because the snaps are annoying. So we select this object, we know it's selected because the lines are white. Right click and we go to clone. It's called it a name here. I don't particularly like this name, so I'm going to call it a new name. And I'm going to call it the fill ramp. And I'm going to do a copy as just a straight copy, not as an instance or a reference. I can't see that object because it's directly above, but it is there. So when I select here, I can see that this one is the cut ramp. I can keep selecting, and it says that this one is the fill ramp. Both of them are the same color, so in order to differentiate between the two of them, I'm going to make the fill ramp a different color. Okay, it's a different color, but it's still over the top of the other one. So what I want to do now is make the parameters of the extrude, which I do here under parameters. I want to make those -2. Great. Now as you can see, that object is still selected. So what I might do just while I'm here is right click on the move tool and just move it up 0.1 in the Z. As you see in the instructions, so that we avoid coplanar faces. Get rid of that. Okay, so now I have my cut object and my fill object. I can go to my materials button. This is the materials editor here. I can select my cut ramp and put my cut object material on by selecting it, making that square go white, and assigning that material to the selection. That's all good. Now I want to select the fill ramp, and I'm going to put the fill object material onto that. All done with the materials. That can go away. Now we're ready to try our proboolean. So to do that, I'm going to have to go to my layers box. If your layers box hasn't turned up here, or it's not showing, you will need it. So what you need to do is go into this grey area, right click and tick layers. You can then pop it up here. You want to go to your layer control box, scroll down and go to terrain and turn it on. Great. Now I can't remember if we put material onto the terrain or not. I'm going to select it. See, it's gone white. Go to the materials editor up here. I'm just going to make sure that it's got the grass material on it. I think it already did, so that's fine. So now we're ready to Boolean our ramp from the terrain. Now, some of you have already Booleaned your building cut outline, and that's fine. So when you select your terrain, what will turn up here under the modifier panel will not be an edit poly shell under terrain. What you will have is a you'll have a proboolean there. Okay, so we also need to make our cutout, our cut for our building. We won't worry so much about the fill, it might just push Boolean a bit too far. So here I've selected the building cut line, and what I'm going to do is go to the modifier panel and add a bevel. Type in BE and bevel will come up. And I've asked to do this before with a height of 10 and an outline of 20. I do think this might cause some issues for this particular ramp because it actually intersects with the ramp. The bevel intersects with the ramp, but we'll see how it goes anyway. So that I also need to put, open the material editor again, and I need to put cut object material, and I need to assign that material to the selection. I'll put that away. Okay, so what you'll have, and this is something that will go on for lots of people, is it's important not to put a proboolean over the top of another proboolean. So we're going to select our terrain. So with the terrain selected, we're going to go to the Create panel, and under the Extended Primitives, Compound Objects, sorry, under the Compound Objects, there is the proboolean just down here. We select the proboolean. Now to begin with, the cut objects, we want to subtract them. So under the parameters, subtraction, that is correct, that's what we want. What we can do is we can press the start picking. We can select the cut object. And when we scroll around, you can see that that looks fine. Now as you can see, in this particular ramp, there is a little bit of an issue with that being quite close, but we'll see how it goes. So while we're still in here in the proboolean, we may as well have a look at what happens now. I can deselect out of here. So this is my object. Underneath, and as you see now, it's not a terrain, it is now a proboolean. Underneath here it has operands. And if I scroll down to here, you can see that there was a terrain, and then I subtracted one thing from it, which was the building cut line. That's all good. That is as we want it. I want to scroll back up here again. Now I want to cut the ramp out of this object. So I'm going to select it again. Here I am, here's my proboolean. Again, I don't want to attach it this time, I still want to subtract it. I'm going to start picking the cut object. And that all looks fine, like it's worked well. I'm going to select on the start picking again so that I don't accidentally start picking or orbiting around. If you haven't already, you can now select your editable spline, which is the fill ramp. You can right click on the move tool up here, and in the transform type in, just move it up 0.1. Click in here, and then that'll probably look better on the surface of the ramp, more like it's going to work properly. Scroll down here. It's looking good. Okay, so now there's one more thing for me to do. I just want to union the lower extrude. Now, there's some things can go wrong here because the extrudes also have coplanar faces, which it may not like. So let's see if that happens. Selecting the terrain, it's going white. Now I'm going to ask it to union this lower bit by pressing the start picking and picking a little bit of the fill ramp that we made earlier. And in this circumstance, it's all worked very well. So if your whole terrain disappears, I recommend that you try a bevel on your fill ramp instead of an extrude. Very good. Now what I can do is just import the building. So I just go to the import, and I want to merge objects from an external 3DsMax file. From there, I'm just going to scroll to where I have saved the building. In this one, there's the Farnsworth. Oh, that looks fine. Okay, so it hasn't come in properly. Let's check out what I've done wrong. I want to merge. I want to get the Farnsworth house. And I need to select that Farnsworth house. All I've missed is the selection there. All of that looks fine. And there it is this time. Sitting on its cut. Now, as you can see, Georgia's ramp doesn't quite meet up to her patio, and I would recommend that you don't mess with it now that it's a proboolean. So this ramp, before you probooleaned, that is the time that you would drag those vertices to the correct location, getting onto this patio here. But that all looks fine. So what you can do now, which is kind of fun, is you just press C for camera, and what will come up is 4 cameras. So we'll have a look at this ramp from the water. So we just go OK. And as you'll see, we have a view, and up here it says camera water. So this is a camera that we set up for you earlier, so that you can see what you're looking at. And this is a view that would be as it would be from the water. For this particular ramp, that view looks absolutely fine. So what I can do then is come up here to my render production, which is the little teapot up here. And I can actually just render that off. And there it goes. I can then save this. So what you can do is just come up here, save this image to a suitable place. I'm going to save them into my Max 2013. I'm going to have another folder in here. Renders. And I can save it as a JPEG or a TIFF, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to save it as a JPEG. Now that's a saved image. You can repeat that process by clicking in your viewport, pressing C for camera. When we have the top view, you can go to it and that will give you a top view of your plan. One thing about the cameras is that you may not have, it may not look good for you. So if we go to the upper path, and you think, yeah, looks alright, but it doesn't really give me what I want. Underneath the hand, you can go to a thing called it's called the truck camera, or the walkthrough. So you can actually change the location of your camera. So whilst you're in this camera view, you can use this as a sort of first-person shooter. What you want to try and do is try and keep it to eye height. So you can use the arrow buttons. I'm using the right arrow button and I'm going down and back because I'm looking for a good view of this rail. I want to turn around a bit, so I probably need to use the middle mouse, hold down the middle mouse button, try and turn around a bit. Maybe something like that. And that's probably a more suitable place to take a render from of this particular rail. And again, all I have to do is go back to the render setup and type in and ask it to do another render. I won't make you sit through the rendering process. There it is. And again, that's just a matter of saving as. One last thing I'll put into this tutorial. Actually no, maybe we'll do that in a different tutorial. That's probably enough for this one.